Hey guys, so tonight I had a couple requests to do something about angels. Um, so we're going to leave the physical realm for a while, and we're going to travel to the spiritual realm in our minds. The topic, it's like I said, it'll be about the angelic host, or as most of you probably call them, angels. I'm not talking about the demonic ones. There is a previous talk I did concerning demons, because angels, real angels, the ones that the Bible talks about, they're not some side note or a feel-good footnote. They're right in the thick of everything that God's doing, from the beginning of the story, all the way to the end. And most of us, if we're honest, we've heard a watered down version. Like they're little glowing figures with harps. Maybe they have maybe they're strumming harps, or they're perched on shoulders and they're giving us advice, and shallow things like that. But that's not what the pages say, and not even close. And I think it's time we ask, why does that matter? Why does it change things if we see them the way that ancient writers did, which they're terrifying, they're powerful, and they're involved in our lives in ways that make the hair on your back stand up sometimes. Think about it. If the unseen world is more active than we admit, if there are beings out there carrying out God's orders, going to war against darkness, standing in the council around God's throne, doesn't that shift how we read the chaos around us? It should make the promises of protection feel much weightier or heavier. Or the warnings about rebellion, that would make them more urgent. And we're going to try to chase these questions this evening, not with quick answers, but by letting the text speak. And I'll probably ramble a bit. I'll try to avoid it. But we're going to probe why this detail fits here, why that vision looks the way it does, and along the way we'll probably bump into some ideas that you've maybe never heard in church or outside the church even. So within the divine council, there are different kinds of these beings with specific roles. There's a hierarchy that's not just ranks, like a rank structure, but there's real responsibility that is delegated to these angels and sometimes abused by these angels. We can tie the whole Bible together without forcing it into our modern presuppositional boxes. It doesn't have to fit the way you've been taught. Just let the text speak. So why do we start here? The Bible does not drop angels in as a decoration. The angels show up when something massive is shifting, like groups of them. There's a birth announced. Judgments are carried out. Battles are fought that we cannot see. If we're missing that layer, then we're missing part of why he came the way that he did, excuse me. It wasn't to pay off an angry God with blood, like some old penalty system, where the Father demands satisfaction before he can forgive. The text doesn't present that way, but this will be to recap what went wrong from the start and to step into our mess as the perfect human Adam and later Israel both stumbled. They even face down the powers that hijack creation, and defeat them through the death and the rising, and then put us back into allegiance with the Father. The view called Christus Victor, that's the heartbeat of part of this, which is victory over death and rebellion and every hostile force, not some courtroom transaction where we're declared righteous while still rotting inside. And these angels, well, they're key players in that drama, loyal or fallen, either way, but they show up, but they show what true allegiance looks like when it's held firm, or what happens when it's thrown away in exchange for pride or lust, or when you succumb to pride or lust. These are real dangers. So what are these angelic beings anyway? What are they? The word itself, angel, It just means messenger, literally. Excuse me. In Hebrew, Greek, it's a class of angelic beings, or a position. You can think about it that way. They're not God, right? They're not rivals. They're not some mini deities in a polytheistic system. Okay, they're created spirits. They're brought into existence. They're brought into existence to serve the Most High, to serve God. And we see hints of this early on, that God speaks in a divine council, like when he says, let us make humankind in our image. Why the plural? Not just a Trinity echo, but like that's woven in there, but it's more broad. It's the heavenly host that's listening in, part of the family business from the jump. The unseen realm mirrors the scene, what you can see, with ranks and roles, all under Yahweh's unmatched authority. He's king. He's the King of Kings. That's what that means. So why mirror it that way? Perhaps to show this order extends everywhere, or to prepare us for understanding how rebellion could ripple through both realms. But the appearances, that's where it gets unsettling. Why do they look ordinary sometimes, like the strangers Abraham fed without knowing who they really were, and then overwhelmingly during other times? Think about it. So if they're blending in to deliver a message without causing panic, human form makes the most logical sense. There's no need to terrify if the point is clear conversation or hospitality, right? Or to help it in a very easy term. That their true form is perhaps veiled for our earthly eyes, but when the veil thins near God's throne, or in a vision of judgment, which is a mercy, they're anything but familiar. They're fiery beings with 6 wings, 2 covering their faces, as if even they can't bear the full blaze of God's glory. 2 were covering their feet in humility. 2 were for flying, and calling out, holy, 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 without stop. So voices that are shaking the doorposts, or those living creatures full of eyes all over, front and back, even on the wings. Faces of a lion, an ox, man, eagle, straight legs, bending and gleaming hooves. Like wheels that are intersecting beside them, also rimmed with eyes, moving in perfect sync without turning. Why are there eyes everywhere? Why are there wheels full of eyes? The idea could be maybe to drive home that nothing escapes notice. Total awareness in service to the King of Kings. He who sees every hidden thing, mobility that's in every direction without hesitation, or the pre-incarnate one who stood before Daniel in the later visions. So he had a body like precious stone, face was flashing like lightning, eyes that were torches, arms and legs were like burnished bronze, like his voice was roaring like a multitude. This is a vision of God. So Daniel's knees buckled at this. His strength was drained. He fell flat. But why would you have that physical reaction? I would say because encountering holiness at that level reflects even secondhand. It hits us with how far short we fall, how set apart God truly is, and yet the angels bow low. They cover their faces. They proclaim his uniqueness without cease. That's the point. Their strangeness isn't to push us away, but to pull us toward awe and wonder and dread at the same time. To remind that glory like God's doesn't share space. It doesn't dilute. Even the evil one appears as an angel of light, the Bible says. He's not some, horrific black creature with a pointed tail. The different angelic beings, we know now that they can take on different forms. And it appears like God protects us from seeing their true form. We couldn't handle it. We're not physically able to do it. The Bible has examples of it, like we just talked about. we would be undone, essentially. Let's talk about the roles now. Why do they do what they do? Okay. Messengers, first and foremost, announce impossible births to aged couples, or they warn families to flee danger in the night. They've rolled away stones from tombs at dawn. They've declared peace on earth to stunned shepherds. But more than messengers, there are some that are ceaseless worshipers around the throne, in the throne room where God sits himself. Voices that are blending that triple holy cry. They're singing together. There are even warrior beings that are clashing in realms that we can't see. One holding back the four winds till God's servants are sealed. In Revelation, unseen hosts that are circling the threatened, protecting them, prophets with chariots of fire. They strengthen the weary one after the wilderness temptation. They minister in the garden agony when Jesus was praying. They also execute justice too, destroying whole cities for judgment. They strike down invading armies overnight. These are legit, real warriors. They're battle hardened. They contribute to the flood when corruption from above and below peaked. Why involve them in judgment? Maybe to show God's rule operates through loyal agents, not arbitrarily on a whim, or to underscore that rebellion has consequences at every level. And we can talk about hierarchy. We'll linger here a little bit longer, but this is where a lot of the intrigue builds, I think, where the Bible gives us more pieces than we often admit. Why even have ranks at all? If God is sovereign, why not just a flat structure where everyone is equal under him? Perhaps because delegation it reflects trust, responsibility. It mirrors an image bearing even in the heavens, or because in administration of a vast creation, it calls for order, like a king with trusted overseers rather than micromanaging every single detail. The texts hint at different kinds, not just generic angels, but specific classes with distinct forms and functions. This is a real empire. Take the seraphim, the burning ones. They're positioned the closest in that throne vision, in the throne room there, where it reads in Isaiah about where he sees the Lord high and lifted up. You ask, why call them burning? Why six wings in that precise arrangement? Remember I said before, 2 are veiling faces, 2 veiling rest, 2 for movement. If it speaks of intense purity, fire that consumes, impurity, yet they remain in his presence without being consumed. Their roles, it seems to be tied to proclaiming holiness, purifying lips with coal from the altar. Why purification through one of them touching Isaiah? I would say to show that one needs to be cleansed to be in God's presence, which is removed not by our effort, but by grace extended even to prophets through repentance. He wasn't purified until he said something. You remember? So, or even at the asking to be cleansed, you have to ask. So it would appear that way. How about cherubim, which are different again, but they guard the way to life's tree after the fall. They're woven into the tabernacle curtains. They flank the mercy seat on the ark. In Ezekiel's visions, they're the living creatures bearing the throne chariot. They're 4 faces. They have 4 faces, each of them: a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle. There's why 4 faces? Perhaps representing dominion over creation's realms. There's wild animals. They're tame humanity, birds full of eyes, wheels besides each, spirit moving them as one. Why the wheels? To show the throne's mobility. God's rule not combined to one spot, but able to go where judgment or mercy calls. So these aren't like really, they're not gentle. I mean, they're fierce guardians of a sacred space where God resides. Another class is archangels like Michael. Why only one called chief prince or archangel explicitly? I mean, he contends with higher powers that are blocking messages. He's led heavenly armies against the dragon and his angels. He disputes over bodies even. I'm pulling examples out of the scripture. This is not my conjecture. So Gabriel even stands also in the presence. He delivers key explanations of visions. He announces the coming king. Why are these two named? Perhaps I would say to highlight leadership in war and communication. You don't in military, it's always the leader who led the army, right? So then we have broader mentions of thrones, dominions, principalities, and powers. But why does the Bible list them that way? Well, it's to show that the layers of authority in the unseen are created through the Son and for him. This ties to the divine council scenes. It's God standing amid the assembly of Elohim. He judges among them when they fail justice, or allotting nations their inheritance according to the number of the sons of God after Babel's scattering, after Babel's rebellion. Remember, why would you allot nations to lesser divine beings? Well, I mean, maybe administrative oversight. Like stewards over regions, teaching humanity or guarding boundaries. But there's also the possibility of them succumbing to corruption. The danger is real there, or deciding to defy God and rebel. Why would Yahweh or God? Why would he risk corruption? I mean, the same as with us, right? Allegiance tested proves genuine. So the watchers from older traditions echoed in the book of Enoch, which were holy ones. They were tasked with watching earth, but 200 of them descend. They all took an oath of imprecation. They all took an oath together, and they led by these angelic beings. We were taught forbidden knowledge. I mean, why watchers specifically? What were they supposed to do? They were to monitor, report, perhaps even instruct in righteousness, but choice that they had, it allowed them to rebel also. All of these kinds. Seraphim that proclaimed, cherubim that guarded, archangels that led and contended, watchers that watched or observed, council members administering. Why is there a variety? Well, I mean, it's common sense. It paints a fuller picture of ordered service. Each of them reflect an aspect of God's rule in a multifaceted way. So you have holiness, guardianship, communication, oversight, execution, punishment, justice. I mean, the highest heaven is a literal functioning kingdom. This is the highest of three tiers. Like you have the first, second, third heaven. The first being the sky, what we can see and what we can see above, and the second heaven being perhaps space. Or my contention is it's a spiritual realm before the third heaven that we are not supposed to venture in. That's why you have people who take psychedelics and they go somewhere. It's real. That's my contention, that part. But then you have the third and the highest heaven, God's vast kingdom. And some push back hard. I mean, they're going to, because this is all foreign to a lot of people, but they might say something like, well, this sounds like polytheism, multiple gods vying for power. I mean, why jump there why would you jump there when the texts say Yahweh's incomparability? There's no one like him. No rival is formed against him. The council serves, it advises, it executes God's will. They're not co-equal bargaining beings. Imagine a king addressing his court before he issues a decree. They listen, they carry out, but the throne's God's alone. It belongs to him. He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and the God of gods. So that's why it says that. Others might say that these are just metaphors for human rulers or cosmic forces. No, there are no literal beings, right? I would say, then why the vivid forms? Okay, you have personal names, you have wars in heaven, you have angels being bound in the abyss for punishment. Why do the angels long to look into salvation if they're just mere symbols, right? This raises the grave question. So can they choose wrong, right? Do they have real allegiance, or are they programmed loyal? The angels, I mean, the angelic beings. The text insists on choice. It says some did not keep their proper domain. They abandoned their assigned station for earthly women, and they birthed violent giants filling the earth. I mean, it wasn't just that, it was beyond that. They taught weapons, they taught sorcery, enchantment, secrets that were not meant for us, either not at all or not yet. I take the not yet position. But earth groaned under this violence, and a great flood ensued after it in response. The book of Enoch, it details the descent on Hermon. This is where those angels landed, essentially. The angelic beings, they took an oath under, his name was Shemiyaza and Azazel. I think those were the leaders. But why allow such choice, right? Allegiance freely given carries weight. Forced obedience is hollow. It's not real. But for beings that beheld the glory directly, rebellion cuts deeper, I think. So no redemption is offered to them, unlike humanity's path as through the obedient Son of God. There are good and evil B'nai Ha-Elohim, or angelic beings. The Bible does not do tidy when it comes to the unseen realm. It doesn't try to whitewash things. It gives us visions that leave prophets trembling on the ground, and accounts of choices that rip creation apart. In a world that feels increasingly adrift, like now, like shelves of old books that no one opens anymore, or how about understanding this layer matters more than we think? It reframes the chaos. It reminds us the battle isn't just human scale, and points us harder towards the victory won, not in some distant heaven, but right here in this mess, like Christ stepping in as the faithful one, the rightful heir to the kingdom. He crushes the powers that rebelled from the start. But he calls us to the same allegiance as he has called the angelic hosts. We were lingering on hierarchy kind of earlier, but in expanding. But I wanted to expand that out because it's not some minor footnote. It's central to why things went wrong up there and why the fallout still echoes down here. Why are there ranks at all? You might ask, but like, if God's, I'm trying to summarize, but if God's rule is absolute, why not have every spirit identical, no distinctions, no delegation? Think about what that would say. A creation where no one bears real responsibility, no one entrusted with oversight. But the texts paint something much different. It's a structured host, varied kinds of reflecting different facets of God's authority, each with roles that demand allegiance held or allegiance broken. I mean, if you want to be real about it. Seraphim, they're burning ones right at the throne, 6 wings arranged in reverence, veiling faces from glory that's too bright even for them, veiling their feet in humility, flying only when they're sent. They don't do as they please in there. They do as they're told, and they have that responsibility thereafter. Why the fire in their name? Why the coal purifying a prophet's lips? It underscores holiness as consuming, and they serve it. They serve God without end. Then the cherubim, which are distinct again, they're not interchangeable. They guarded Eden's gate with the flaming sword, overshadowing the ark's mercy seat. This is woven. I mean, they're even woven into the curtains that guard the sacred space. The great throne, in the great throne visions, they're the living creatures that propel the chariot. There's 4 faces that cover creation's domains. They have essentially this could be like man's reason, lions, wild ferocity, the ox's labor, and the eagle's dominion in the sky. Their bodies are full of eyes, their wings are joined. I mean, wheels intersect beside each one, also have eyes. Why? I mean, why do they have wheels at all? I mean, why the mobile throne blazing with fire flashing between it? I mean, it literally shows God's presence isn't static. It moves, it sees all, it knows all, and this is confined to a temple that men build. He goes where justice and deliverance calls. The whole apparatus is literally ready to roll into nations or over enemies. The cherubim bear that mobility. They guard the accessibility to God. They are fierce in protection. And Satan himself is described, who was once an anointed cherub, and he covered the throne. I mean, why that title if ranks mean nothing? If it highlights how high the fall is when trust is betrayed at that level. I mean, it's amazing. So like archangels now, they stand out too. Michael, he contends as chief among princes. He leads the charge when dragon and followers war in heaven, and they aiding against the prince that's blocking messages to Daniel. Why name him defender of the people? Why show him prevailing? Gabriel also, he stands in the presence. He's different though. Remember when we spoke about this earlier? He explained sealed visions. He announced the birth that shifted history. Why are these two highlighted? Well, it marks leadership in conflict and revelation. Roles demand precision and strength. We can get even more broad. Remember we talked about earlier thrones and dominions? These are all created through the Son, for the Son. Yet some twisted in dark places, some twisted and made dark places for themselves. Why mention? You can't mention them if everything is equal, right? The divine council is not invention. It's God rising in the assembly, judging among the Elohim when they fail to do what they're supposed to do. That allotting inheritances by their number after tongues confused at Babel. Remember? So sons of God presenting themselves, some stepping forward with accusations. Why the council scenes? Well, I mean, delegation again. Stewards over regions. Perhaps even guiding or testing humanity's past. But why would you risk it at all? Like I said, allegiance is not allegiance without the option to withhold it. And watchers fit this here. They're holy ones that are tasked with observing the earth. But a band of descending, oath-bound angels teaching secrets of meadow and root, charm and astrology, they're literally corrupting what was meant for order. And all these kinds, there's seraphim that were purifying and proclaiming, cherubim that were guarding and bearing the throne's movement. I mean, the archangels were leading war and through sword and through word, and watchers monitored until they overstepped their bounds. Council members administering till they're judged. It's diverse. It mirrors the richness of creation itself. I mean, no cookie cutter servants, but varied reflections of the Creator's manifold wisdom. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time, but it heightens the tragedy when choices go wrong. Not two-level error, but actual rebellion from positions of profound trust. Some voice. That's why God's reaction is so sharp. Some voices dissent strong here. They're like, say this hierarchy smacks of it's just borrowed mythology, Brian. I mean, God's on mountains like pagans would have dreamed. Why assume borrowing when the text subverted? Yahweh, the one among many, but standing to judge the assembly, he declares they'll die like men for failing the poor and the fatherless. He says this verbatim. Equally, there's no shared throne. He doesn't share the throne with anybody. God doesn't. Others argue this like it's like some poetic poem for like chaotic forces and stuff like that. I mean, thrones are symbols, but why personal disputes, named contenders, binding in chains of gloom? Why is there a war with Michael if it's just a metaphor? It's so vivid and it demands more than just it's poetry. These are real agents, real choices. There's real fallout, which pulls us deeper into free will. Do they have it or they don't? Why else does there are fall accounts that are woven through sons of God taking human women, birthing giants whose violence demands a flood eventually. The Watchers in Enoch, they detail it starkly. I mean, think about it. The descent on Hermon, the leaders of the rebellion were named even. They taught all kinds of stuff. We sinned, and like some have said, they taught us to sin better. They sharpened that. Why would God permit rebels to do this? Why would God even allow them to descend to earth? I mean, choice again. Allegiance that is proven in restraint. And the great dragon, remember in Revelation 12, he swept a third of the stars. War erupts. This is after Christ is born. Loyal angels were casted out with the accuser in Revelation 12. Why a third if no free will? This did not happen in Genesis. For about the third of the angels, you have to read Revelation 12 again. Another thing is programmed loyalty crumbles under no test. So for beings seeing glory unveiled, to defect is inexcusable. No mediator is offered for them like it is us. No son taken their nature. So good and evil's division is like earth and it's like they are loyal flames of fire and fallen prowling around. So like, why preserve the split for so long by God? Justice is delayed, but it's also short. Okay. Warning is visible in the unseen. This battle is ongoing, but it stop here. Guardians, how about those? Why promise charge over you, bearing you up on hands, encamping around you, especially around those who fear God? Why little children's angels beholding the face always? Why is Peter's release mistaken for his angel? Protection is real. Aid is then dispatched right after the asking. But why are there plural hosts often and not singular ones? Perhaps our needs vary. Crisis calls legions. There's obedient and loving angelic beings. The faithful are not abandoned in peril, but are comforted during hardship. They deliver help in many ways. All this argues toward the center, like why the Son enters not as a conqueror from afar, but he's born vulnerable, he's tempted, and he suffers. This is not to appease the wrath in some legal swap where the Father punishes the innocent to spare the guilty. Securing believers eternally, no matter the drift later. No, he recapitulates. He lives Christ. He lives the allegiance Adam forfeited. Okay. Israel squandered in the wilderness in exile. He faces the powers that allotted nations. The corrupted Elohim and their princes. He exposes their bankruptcy publicly on the cross. Jesus triumphs in the descension to Sheol and with his rising in the ascension, leading captivity captive. Listen to my Sheol talk I did. Christus Victor means victory reclaiming what rebellion stole. And this invites allegiance that has a serious warning. God refines us through trial. It's our fealty or allegiance proves genuine in the end. Hence the trial. Imagine a man years into following. He hits rock bottom. There's betrayal, there's loss, temptation. Does the walk away secure or press harder into allegiance, trusting the one who overcame? I mean, or how about a woman or a man raising their kids alone? Nights that are heavy with doubt. The promise stands. The promise stands for those that are fearing, who are drawing near to God in the trial, not nearer to themselves. That makes sense. This unseen realm, it's the varied kinds, the structured ranks of angelic beings, the eternal choices. It argues against complacency. Angels don't let us stay comfortable. They point always to the king that they serve, the victory that he secured, and the allegiance that he deserves. So hopefully I didn't ramble, guys. I think the next one will possibly, I had a few requests for doing Wild and Witches and like sorcery and stuff, but I think that'll be the next one. But hope this helped you and explain some things, lay some things out, put categories in your mind. So with that, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you and grant you peace. Good night.